Hi and welcome to the screencast. I'm your host Mohammed Azam, and in this particular screencast I will show you that how you can test your CLR assembly code using IronRuby. Okay, I have this business objects project already created. This is a class project. It has a prime service, and the main purpose of the prime service is to create a method or to basically have a number passed to it, and it will determine that if that number is a prime number or not a prime number. Now I have a test over here which is test prime without spec, so we're not going to use spec, which is also known as rspec in the Ruby world in this particular example, but we are just going to write plain old test. The first thing is the require test/unit, so we are just saying that okay, this package, this particular module is actually required, which contains all the classes required to perform the testing. This already has a reference to the business objects, so when I compile the test suite, it is going to put the business objects assembly, the DLL, in the bin directory. So that's where we are pointing using this particular file .directory name file and bin going inside the bin. The next part is to include the namespaces, so I'm just going to say okay, include business objects, so that I don't have to type the long namespaces. And what I will also do is I will include test and unit, so I don't have to write the test unit with every class. Okay, so if you're from the .NET background, you might consider test units as the test fixture. Alright, so let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is create a class, and the first name also has to be capital, so I'm just say when one is passed to the prime service. Okay, and I can over here say and the method name, always for the test method, it should always begin with the keyword test. Okay, if you don't write this, it will not execute. Test, when one is passed to the prime service, should return true value. Okay, and we are just going to say over here, okay, prime service equal to prime service dot new, and I can say over here prime service dot is prime, and I'm going to pass what? I'm going to pass 1, and I'm going to say okay, it's going to return me true value, so I can assert on that. Okay, now if I have to run this, I have to go to this particular wherever this particular file exists, and in that case I'm already inside this folder, and I can say ir and then the name of the test, which is test prime without spec.rb. okay, and I'm going to run that. So let's see what happens now. Well, it ran, but it didn't see any tests, so it says 0 tests. There are no tests. That's because this particular class did not inherit from the test class, which in this case is test unit test case. But since we have already included test unit, we don't have to type all that. We can just say test case. Let's go ahead over here, save it, go back and run it. Now it's going to run some test and see what happens. So it's going to say undefined method is prime, because is prime is actually not defined. So let's go over here in the prime service, and I'm just going to say okay, public boolean is prime integer number, and now what they're saying is that if 1 is passed, so I can say if number equal to 1, then we will return that this is a prime number, else you will return false. Build this application again, and let's go back to the command prompt and run the test again. And now we have one test, one assertion, and you can actually see that the test actually passed. Let's go ahead and write one more test. Okay, so I'm just going to say over here, okay, when 2 is passed to the prime service, test case, def test should return true value. Okay, so we're just basically passing 2 now. So I'm just going to say prime service dot new and assert prime service dot is prime 2, and I'm asserting that it will return me a true value. Go ahead and run it again. And actually it failed, and there's a failure, and it is saying that the failure actually happened in when 2 is actually passed. Okay, and false is not true because we are returning false when we are passing 2. So I can go ahead and say, okay, when 1 is passed or when the number is actually equal to 2, then you will return true. Let's go ahead over here again and run it. And now we have 2 tests and 2 assertion, and both of the tests actually passed. So after having to write all this code, you might be wondering that why would you ever go and write IronRuby or Ruby code to test your CLR or statically typed language assembly? Well, I mean, you will never use this particular syntax to do it, because if you're using this, you are not really achieving anything. Okay, you're writing pretty much the same amount of code that you will write in any statically typed language. But in the next screencast, I will show you that how you can use spec, which is basically RSpec in the Ruby world. So how we can use RSpec to make basically specification, to make kind of like a story driven or behavior driven development, and how it can leverage our test. Okay, so the basic use or the basic criteria, I think, of writing or your unit testing your CLR assembly using a dynamic language like Ruby is that we can leverage the power of certain frameworks like Cucumber, like Water. Then there is also this mocking framework, different kind of mocking frameworks available, and then of course spec framework, which will help us to write behavior driven development test. So that's pretty much it, and in the next screencast I will show you that how you can write the same test using spec. I hope you like this video. Thank you very much.